Okay, so I have a question for you.
Okay.
We interact with tons of different roofing companies, and I never know if they're legit or not.
Yep.
So what are some questions that I could ask these roofing companies to know if they're reputable or not in the city?
Yes. So great stuff to protect your clients. So one, there's a few things you can piggyback it, but what is your office address and where is it located?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought of that.
Do they have a brick and mortar, or are they officing out of their house, or don't even have an office?
Okay. So you need to know that they have like a location locally that
because I mean,
proves that they're legit.
if you're a serious company, then you know the odds are you're going to have that, right? I mean, that's just, especially for a roofing industry, you're going to have an office. If you're a larger company or a reputable company, you're going to have somewhere to go. So
Right,
huge
of course.
question. I mean, I would ask for their website and their social media to go see, because I could tell you how great I am, but do you have other people saying work you've done so you can see kind of a proof statement?
Right.
If you go talk about how
So
great.
past clients and testimonials, it's something you want to research.
Yeah, to go look, Google, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere, right? So you could see what other people are saying.
And I guess if they've got an office address, it's going to show up on Google too.
It's gonna show up on Google, and you'll be able to see. It's like I look at it's a great company, been in business 5 years, but they got one review. Usually that's not gonna happen.
Have you ever seen or heard of a roofer that doesn't even have a location?
Yes.
They just show up on site and say that they have a company.
We had somebody the other day call our number because they Googled, and they somehow just the name and results they called, and she was like, "Hey, I'm coming to your office to get my referral fee." And so I was asking them, "What's your name?"
Yeah.
Go through it.
I don't know who you are.
No idea who she is. So I'm looking through our entire system, and there was no name, no street address, and come to find out, it wasn't our
So
company.
she mistook you guys for a different company.
Yeah, and they didn't have an office. They didn't have an address, nothing. No website, no nothing. And so she's trying to track down to get her money from this guy, and nowhere
She's
to be
probably
found.
never going to see that money.
Ever, or see him.
No. Yeah.
Never going to see him again. So,
That's
but
crazy.
what happens, right? Like,
Yeah.
things happen. It's construction. Something goes wrong.
Yeah.
How are they going to show back up? You don't even know where to find
Well, I see it not just with roofers. I see it with pole companies especially, but I mean, all different types of trades people. They'll have a DBA that they're operating under. They'll get paid on a job, or they'll take a deposit and run, and next thing you know, they pop up a couple months later with a different name.
Yeah.
And so that's why it seems so important to me to know that when you're hiring a roofer, it's one of the most important pieces of the puzzle with a home is the roof. And you want to make sure that they're legit and they're in business. You can get a hold of them a year from now if you need repairs done or anything like that, especially if the roof is warranted. So
Yes. Well, and that's the other thing is make sure that you said something there about running off with money. Do you require money up front? Because no one.
So that's something we should ask.
Yes.
I should ask a roofer.
That should be something you ask, and there should be something in your contract or in your agreement that when you're going through that, before you sign it, the payment terms.
So what's the correct answer to that? If I ask a roofer, do you accept payment up front? Do you take money
Yeah,
up
you
front?
require money up front, and if the answer is yes, they do, then don't go with them. And the reason why is if somebody's an established company, or they're not going to require any of that money
deposit.
up front. Yeah, so for
So
us,
requiring money up front, is that the same thing as a deposit? And
yeah, but but you shouldn't need that. They can't run off then.
Okay.
You should exchange no money unless they're doing work on your home or there's some type of materials dropped, right?
Okay.
There are things like, so example, you have a signed contract. Now, if it's just roof, there's no reason they should pay anything until materials are dropped.
so that's a little different than other like repairs and renovations that get done on homes, because a lot of, I mean, even if you're just getting some cabinets painted, that painter is going to ask for a deposit. So that's important for a homeowner to know, is that when it comes to a roof, they're not supposed to give money up front.
No.
Okay.
Shouldn't give any money, no money up front whatsoever. I've never seen it really work out.
Okay.
All the horror stories come from I got money up front and didn't get my roof done.
So do roofers get licensed in Texas? Like I'm a real estate broker,
Yep.
and I've got a couple different license numbers. So are you required to have a license?
No, so in Texas, to cut hair, you have to have a license, right? To do a roof, you do not.
Really?
Yeah, so Texas is a non-licensed state, but there's actually a group that it's called RCAT, and
Okay.
you can get a license through there.
So you can opt to go the extra mile as a company
Yes.
and get a license.
Yes.
Okay.
I think maybe 1% in the state have it.
1% of roofing companies have a license.
And it's bonus, but they go through a pretty big process, 30, 45-day vetting process of calling all the suppliers, making sure you don't owe money, going through your background, going through your social media, going through past reviews, clients. They don't just allow anyone in there, so it's not just a typical pay for play.
Okay. So that's an important question to ask a
Huge
roofer that
question.
might do a roof on your home. You want to know if they're licensed or not. And more than likely, you wouldn't use one that is not licensed.
Yeah, especially somebody that if you're opting in to do that, you're kind of showing you have nothing to hide, right? Like everything's out there for somebody.
Right.
It's like, for me, would you hire a real estate agent if they weren't licensed?
No, well, they wouldn't even be allowed to do
Exactly.
business.
So
it's crazy that in the state of Texas, that's not regulated.
Dealing with people's homes and it's not regulated at all.
Wow.
So I would ask if they have a license, obviously the money up front, and then the next one would be ask if they have insurance and ask for proof.
Yeah, this is a big one. I've heard several horror stories about roofers or roofing companies that have had the workers on the roof, and if one of them falls, if the roofing company doesn't have sufficient insurance, then the homeowner becomes liable and they're going to get sued.
Somebody's going to get sued if somebody falls off. And so if, God forbid, somebody falls off and dies or gets severely injured, somebody's going to have to pay for that. And so if your roofing company is not covered, then you're going to be the next liable. So as a homeowner, you want to make sure that the insurance company, that the roofing company has that insurance. Otherwise,
Right.
you're in trouble. So who's going on your roof? And so
So if I'm interviewing a roofer and I say, do you have sufficient insurance? Do you have workers' comp? Are you covered? And you say yes, I'm just supposed to take your word for it?
no, you'd ask, can I see proof?
Okay.
Right. It's kind of like I'd verify the office. So if you ask, do you have an office? They say, yes. Okay, great. What's the address? Right. Or you can go check it out to verify it. Do you have insurance? Well, yes. Let me go verify it.
Okay.
Because it just protect you as a homeowner
Right, of
to
course.
see it. I mean,
And this isn't something, so if a homeowner requests this from their roofing company, the roofing company should not get annoyed or bothered that they're having to take this step. I would think that's just something they have in queue that they would give.
best
homeowner.
I can pull up 2 seconds on my phone. So
Got it. Okay.
it shouldn't be an issue. Any of these things they get frustrated by is probably because they don't have it. Right.
Okay.
That's be the only
So
reason.
they should be forthcoming with all of this information.
100% out of the gates. And if they're not, again, not saying that people are just going to go to the table, here you go, right? But
Of
if
course.
you ask those questions, they should have them right away.
Yeah, if somebody said, let me see your broker's license, it'd be instantly. Not a probably pull it up in my Google
Yeah.
Drive and show it. So
Exactly. So it's the same thing.
Yeah. So another question I hear all the time is, and this is, I think it used to be common for so long. It might have changed. I don't know the exact details because I'm not a professional roofer. But, whenever there's a roof in question, I get asked by the homeowner or my buyer, is there any way that the roofer can help cover our deductible for us? Like, is there a way you can manipulate the funds so that the deductible is covered?
So you get asked that all the time. And hopefully after this, you'll be a professional roofer. So
Okay.
it'll be good. Can you deductible? And so there was a law passed that waiving deductible is illegal, right?
Okay.
So
So it's illegal in the state of Texas.
to waive your deductible. So just
And
imagine.
what would waiving a deductible look like? Is that where you kind of overcharge to make sure that?
Yeah, and you're filing, there's a couple ways you could file for basically an invoice for work you didn't do, right? So there's ways you can get in trouble and you put your client at risk. So imagine your client getting in trouble because the roofer waived a deductible and it's your referral. There's a way that, people will say, oh, I'll waive your deductible. And what they'll do is, because look, there's only one or three ways that you can really cut the price. One is the profit. And nobody in business is going to just waive their
Right.
profit, right? It's not why in
Yes,
business.
they've got to get paid.
Cheap labor or cheap materials, right? It's the only way they can get there. And so what do you think they're going to do? Well, they're either going to cut the material or they're going to cut the labor. Then you're going to get cheap. Or what they can do is where they commit insurance fraud is they start invoicing for work they didn't do.
Okay.
And then what happens is it comes back on your client or it comes back on a client, and then you're putting the client at risk. For us, this is how I raise my family. This is how I raise my kids. And I'm not going to put my family in that situation, let alone put somebody else in that
Or
situation.
your company or your employees. or
Exactly.
anybody.
And then now all of a sudden you're thinking about selling your home, and no, you're fighting a criminal case because you waived your deductible $2,000-3,000 or whatever the case may
Right.
be.
It's not
So
worth it.
It's not. So
Okay. So if a roofer says that they're willing to work around the deductible with you, that should be a red flag.
it's a huge what if they're saying they're going to waive a deductible, is a huge red flag. There's financing options. There's different options, but you just someone telling you to waive your deductible is not one of
Okay.
them.
So that's really good information. I mean, all of those topics, those are good things to know to ask a roofer that you're considering doing work on your home.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so while I have you in the hot seat,
Okay.
I've got a mile long list of questions that some you might have to elaborate on a little bit more than others, but they're common questions that I get all the time.
Okay.
And
Shoot, let's do it.
all right. So, first thing is, one of the biggest things I hear is I'll be showing a property and we're standing out front and the potential buyer's looking at the house and they look at the roof and they're like, oh, looks like it needs a new roof.
Yep.
Literally just standing on the curb. So how do we know really if a house needs a new roof or not? Because sometimes it'll look stained or you might see some missing shingles.
Yep.
And instantly they're like, oh, we need a new roof.
Yep. So the staining, not necessarily the factor of it's needs a new roof. Missing shingles could be one, right?
Yeah.
That is something to look for. If you know it's missing shingles, obviously something has happened, right? You don't know until you get an inspection, and you should have somebody on the roof getting an inspection, right? Okay. You'll see people with drones. Drones are great. They give you some stuff, but you can't get up there and check some of the flashing. You can't get up there and check if there's missing shingles, lifted shingles, right?
That actually kind of goes into my next question. And being in real estate, anytime a house goes under contract, the first few days of the executory period is an option period. And that's when the house is available to the buyer to get any inspections that they want. And they typically call in a general inspector.
Yep.
And I mean, it can be pretty costly. It can be between $500 to $1,000. And I always tell them, you need to get a roofer out there to do the roof inspection because the general inspector, he doesn't actually get on the roof.
No.
And if they don't have a drone, they're not even seeing the roof. So it's gotten a little bit more popular in the past year or two that a general inspector will capture some drone footage and do kind of a light overview of the roof. But how important is it for a roofer to actually get on the roof and put eyes on the roof to really tell you what's going on?
It's super important. There could be damage. So, use the example, windstorm comes in, get high winds here in Houston, and it lifts the shingles, but they set back down. Well, they're supposed to reseal when it heats back up. You can't notice that unless you're on the roof and you're checking.
What do you mean reseal?
So the shingles should actually, when you see them on a roof or you're up there, they seal, right? They actually
Is that
seal.
like with a strip of like adhesive or tar?
Yeah, and so when it heats up, it has it on there and it seals back to the other shingles, right?
Okay.
Well,
So the roof shingles are made to kind of be flexible?
no, they're not. But so that's the thing. But you don't know
Got it.
unless you get up there and you can lift them up. You're not supposed to be able to do that. But if I'm looking from a drone, I can't see that.
Okay,
Right?
you're not touching and feeling the shingles.
Yes.
See.
And then some of them, like let's say if you have hail damage, hail and winds, what we have, if you can't see some of the hail damage, obviously you can't see it from the street. And even with the drone, you can't see all the hail damage. On a darker roof, it's tough. If it's cloudy, there's so many factors. So you could look at a roof, go, oh, it looks good, but it has, wind damage. It has potential leak areas, exposed areas around your vents. There could be areas. So you want somebody up there to do an inspection. You want someone to document it.
Okay.
You want someone to actually take photos of what they're seeing, good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Document while you're up there so you can tell a story to really, prove it's almost like if you're an attorney, you're presenting a case. Like this
Yeah,
roof is either
absolutely.
good, here's the case, it's bad, but here's why, here's the photos, here's your options.
Got it. So that really brings me into my next questions one of my next questions I get all the time is, we'll get the inspection report back.
Yep.
And the roof is always a major pain point. And sometimes the inspector, the roof inspection says, that maybe the homeowner had DirecTV come out and put a satellite on the roof or wherever there were some screw holes, they weren't sealed properly.
Yeah.
Or like the flashing around the chimney, that's
Yep.
a big one. So you've got these leak prone areas and there might be a little moisture getting in and then the home buyer just freaks out. They anybody hears water or moisture, they're worried about water damage. But for the most part, I've seen that it can just be repaired usually.
Absolutely.
You don't need a whole new roof.
Yeah, you don't. And the way, so when somebody inspects your roof, they should look at it from 3 different angles, no matter what it is. They get up there and your roof's okay, right? Maybe it's got wear and tear or whatever, but the roof's good. It doesn't need to be replaced, doesn't need to be repaired. Option 2, it needs to be repaired, right? That's minor stuff, leak area, maybe some caulking or sealant went away. You had the hole drilled from the satellite, missing shingle, some flashing that was maybe rusted or wasn't sealed properly.
Yeah, we hear about that.
Yeah, or it just needs to be replaced because it's old or been through storm damage. And so, but either way, you should have all that documented, and that's the way it should be. So not all roofs need to be repaired, just like not all need to be replaced. So let's just say satellite dish, they drilled some holes in it, the sealant got old, so water started getting in. What you should do is obviously get them up there to reseal it, make sure that's the problem.
So is it important when, as in a situation like that, when the roof is being inspected, the roofer actually needs to go in the attic. They need to get in the attic.
Yeah, they need to check because you might.
So they need to come inside the home and go in the attic and look.
So we had a situation where a guy we were talking to, we were doing his neighbor's roof, and we were talking, hey man, if he saw him outside, if anything gets in your yard, just let us know. Do roof inspection. No, I'm good. Don't have any leaks. And so as we were doing the roof, his second story, we saw a couple missing shingles on his ridge. And so I was like, I took a photo and showed him, hey, this is what's on your ridge. He's like, I'm not having any water come in. So we get into the attic. He had personal belongings there. They were catching all the water. So the reason when someone's doing an inspection, you should have them check the attic is what if your insulation's collecting that water? What if personal belongings are collected? There could be a million things up there that are collecting the water, so it just hasn't gotten to the house yet. So better to just be proactive than reactive. So getting in there can prevent all that.
Because sometimes I'll if I have a home buyer that wants the roof inspected, they'll send a roofer out. And I'll say, do you need access to the home? Oh, no, I'm good. I'll get up there. And I'm like, well, aren't you going to go inside?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that's so important that they need to go in there and look.
It is a huge thing. We get that a lot. Some people, they don't want you in the home right away. But usually at some point where, hey, we want to check
But then it's
this.
only a half inspection.
Exactly. And more than likely, you can catch something a lot different in the attic than you would on the roof in some cases. So it is, if you could do that full inspection, that would be the best. You're not going to be able to get the whole thing.
So what would make a roof, like one roof, more expensive than another? Because someone will tell me, oh, my neighbor got a roof for X amount, and then they get a quote and it's almost double. Yeah.
So obviously the home size, right? So you get a question. Well, my home's 4,000 square foot, but so is hers. Well, yours is 1 story and hers 2, right? So it could be that goes into it. Is the home 1 story, 2 story?
Okay.
That actually 2 story it's a little more expensive with the crew. The steepness of your roof. So it goes in elevations. The steeper the roof, the more it's going to cost, right?
Of course.
So there's issues that go on there, and then of course there's different kinds of shingles, like a 3-tab. It's a less expensive shingle. It holds up less to wind damage, but it's a little less. And you have like an architectural, which is a standard 30-year shingle. Then of course,
and I get asked that all the time too. Whenever I have, whether I'm representing the seller or the buyer, a seller's disclosure in the state of Texas, even if you're for sale by owner, you have to provide a seller's disclosure on a property that's being sold whenever it's changing hands. And there's a section on that disclosure. It says, what type of roof is it?
Yep.
And how old is the roof?
Yep.
It's one of the very first things when I get that. It's one of the first things I scroll to because it's usually the first question that the home buyer's asking me.
Yep.
And as a listing agent, I've got to put it in the listing. There's a variety of reasons, but sometimes the homeowner just doesn't know. And they'll say, I don't know what kind of roof I have. This is even some of my most savviest clients.
Yeah,
they don't know what kind of roof they have. If it's tile roof, that's pretty obvious, but it's usually the most common is a composition shingle. Yeah. Right.
It's asphalt shingle. It's pretty standard. It's the majority of roofs in the United States.
So asphalt and composition shingle, I hear those used like interchangeably.
Same thing. Yeah.
It means the same thing.
Yeah. It means the same thing. So you're going to see and then inside that you'll have like a 20 or 25 year, then a 30, 35 year, and there's some impact resistant, but that's your basis. Those are all asphalt shingles though.
Do you see a difference in, certain builders use cheaper materials to keep the cost down on the house? And
so I think it's maybe not the specific builder, right, but it's more of like if they're keeping costs down on the house, they're going to use a less expensive shingle, right? Or you'll see a lot now that they won't put gutters on house to keep costs down. So it's more that than like a specific builder.
So a 25-year shingle, does it actually last 25 years?
No, usually. So especially in Texas, because we
Is
get
that like in
crazy storms.
optimal conditions? It'll last 25 years?
Yes, it's what it's supposed to be. Manufacturer warranty will be 20 years. So as long as it doesn't get hit with weather and storms, tree fall on it, it should last 20 years. But we get so much crazy stuff here, it typically doesn't last that.
So with the weather here in Houston and the high humidity and the heat and the sun and everything, that's just more wear and tear on these?
More wear and tear. So you got to think about it. Like, so imagine in Houston, you have, hurricanes, high winds, humidity, stuff off the ocean. You're in direct heat or sun, right? And so you got high heats, you get 100-degree temperatures, you get winds, and you get, ton of rain, you get hailstorms and windstorms. You got to remember that's all going to play into your life of your roof. It's no different. Like, use your body. If you eat bad food, smoke cigarettes, you're probably not going to live as long as a right person. It's the same thing with roof. That all that's going to tie into it. So, insurance recommends having your roof checked out at least twice a year.
Okay, so this is a big deal. There's multiple different things on a house where they'll have a warranty, and I always tell my buyers, I'm like, don't get a false sense of security because something has a warranty. I know I had a client one time that they were like, well, the roof doesn't look that great, but it's got a transferable warranty. And next thing they know, they go to put a new roof on. They're like, your warranty's void because you didn't keep your gutters clean or whatever, So how important is having gutters? Do they actually help you maintain the roof?
Yes. So, and to talk on warranties on a roof, it's pretty much almost non-existent. And the reason why is all warranties are going to be voided with a weather or, tree falls off.
So the fine print on a warranty, it's not something that a homeowner should just bank on.
You have to replace your roof. Now, what will happen is install error or something like that, right? Good company is going to back up that install. But you have a major hailstorm, that's not going to cover your warranty's not going to cover that. You have a major windstorm, a hurricane, a flooding.
Got it.
None of that's going to cover. Tree falls on it. To gutters though, you can see some crazy stuff. We had a homeowner that kept saying they had a roof leak. We went out there. It's not a roof leak. Roof was in great condition. Maybe it's the windows. Wasn't the windows. Maybe it's coming in through the brick. No, what had happened was there was a tennis ball stuck in the downspout. So that water was actually overflowing from the gutter and getting back underneath the house and coming down the wall. So not paying attention to your gutter. I mean, just think about that. A tennis ball was stuck in
Absolutely. There. I have boys. We've had tennis balls and baseballs cause so many problems in our lives.
So many. So you could, leaf guards over that, cleaning them out. If you're around trees, they're going to get full. Make sure you clean those out. Again, twice a year, right?
So it sounds like gutters can be a hindrance or they can be a problem causer for roofs. It's not necessarily that they help you maintain the roof.
Yeah, if they're done right, it'll help maintain more of the property, maybe not just the roof, right?
So it's like all moving parts working together.
Yeah, because you'll see even gutters installed correctly can help with foundation issues.
Absolutely,
yeah, because water running.
It's throwing the moisture away from the foundation.
Exactly. So all that goes into it. Having those things done, all those things done properly are going to help maintain the property, right? Just like trimming back your trees, making sure you don't have trees touching your roof, overhanging your roof, making sure you're cleaning off debris.
I see that all the time. I've showed a few houses this past month, and I couldn't believe how many large branches were just on the roof.
Yeah, and they're just hanging out there, and no one ever.
And then I see the squirrels are able to just easy access and everything else.
Absolutely, yeah.
You see rodents and squirrels and stuff getting into houses.
Yes, they do. They get in, and I mean sometimes that's tougher to deal with, right? There's it's how do you stop something from getting on your roof, a squirrel, when it can climb trees? So that stuff will happen, but you can eliminate some of the problem by not having those tree branches over. Right. And good windstorm and that falls on your house, it's going to trash your roof and trash your home. So you want to make sure you trim those back. Don't have them touch.
I have a part of my house I'm really hoping a tree falls on it. So this is another big question I get especially with sellers. Someone, when they put in a roof, they get sold a radiant barrier.
Yes.
I hear about these radiant barriers all the time, and people think that they should, be able to make more money on their house because they've got a radiant barrier. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious, what is a radiant barrier, and is it really worth it?
Yeah. So, and this might fall under two. You might see impact resistant shingles. It's an upgrade, right?
Okay.
It is going to, it's like, especially with the heat, like proper ventilation.
So
right?
it's supposed to help repel some of the heat.
It helps repair some of the heat. It's supposed to, it decrease the temperature by 5 to 10 degrees in your attic. Now, I think part of the common, misconception is that that's going to cool your house 5 to 10 degrees. That's not the case.
I think so.
It might be like 1, right? It's like adding more ventilation. It might cool your attic a few degrees, but is that going to transition to your home? Maybe by a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be life changing. So
Right.
I would definitely say it's an upgrade. How much of an upgrade, I guess, would be determined, by the seller. But
Size of the roof and the size
yeah,
of the
and how much do you really want
What
that?
would be like a ballpark? Like say on a 3,000 square foot home, what would it cost to add the radiant barrier?
So with the price of like decking now, you would usually do it obviously when you're pulling off the roof, and you would add it as you
So is it another layer to the roof?
It's added on to the decking, so you probably talking a couple $1,000. So
Okay.
it's definitely an upgrade.
Yeah, I mean that's a significant upgrade, but
Yep.
for me as a real estate agent, I'm asking from the perception of a seller who thinks they can jack the price of the house up 10 grand because they have a radiant barrier.
I don't. Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely a selling feature.
It's a selling feature. Yeah, I think what really selling, if you're talking like foam insulation, that actually dictates the cooling. Like you can walk.
That's
into
more
an attic.
important than a radiant barrier.
Oh yeah, and it's you're probably talking $10,000 to $15,000, but it's definitely a huge investment, but it's worth
Right.
it.
Over
You'll
the
walk
life
in
of
that
the
attic.
home, you're going to recoup those funds.
Oh, easily. That is a huge one. Impact resistant shingles. Hey, if you want to get it, it can last.
Impact resistant, does that mean like if there's a hailstorm or something hits the roof, it bounces off better?
It's what's supposed to be, right? But it's so people get sold on a lot of this stuff because I think it's a way for like roofers to sell a homeowner. Like, well, I'll throw in this for you, right? It'll make you super roof. And so, but do you really reap the benefits of it? I would say with the weather we have here, hell is not going to just say, well, that's impact resistant, we can't touch that one, right? It's going to hit whatever roof it
Right.
hits. So with the high winds and the impact that's coming down, it can still do damage.
Yeah.
It is going to be tougher for your insurance to approve that impact resistant. So when the roof gets damaged, their odds are you're probably going to pay out of pocket for that one because they're like, well, no, there's an impact resistant shingle. It's going to hold up with these storms. So they're going to pick it apart a little bit more with the damage.
So you're saying if I put a roof on and I chose the impact resistant shingles, and then later on, a few years goes by and there's a hailstorm, I call my insurance agent out or insurance adjuster and say, hey, we want to know if we can get a new roof. We're not as likely to get approved.
Yeah, we've actually ran into that a few times where people have had impact resistance and they pay for like the gutters and all the accessories and they don't pay for the roof. And clients get one of the things they get having an older roof, because you'll hear clients, oh, well, I don't want to do that because it's going to raise my premium. Ironically, it'll actually lower it. If you have a newer roof, it makes your premium lower because you're less likely a risk to have to get a new roof, i.e. when you put on impact resistant, they lower your premium 10-20% because
wow, that's pretty significant.
it's a big deal. So getting a new roof
Which
can do the
that
same
in
thing.
turn affects your monthly payment.
It does. So there's things that you have to take in consideration. If somebody's going to lower your insurance premium by 30%, is it worth doing impact resistant? The answer is probably yes. If it's 5-10%, answer is probably no because you pay for the upgrade. So
that's really kind of up to the homeowner and their financial wherewithal and how
where they're at and how much they want to spend on it, how much they want to invest, what their thought process is.
You sparked another question that I want to ask you while I have you in front of me, and that is sometimes when we're in a situation where the buyer and the seller they're at odds over this roof, the new roof that needs to be installed, and we find out insurance will pay for it. And so everybody's like, oh, amazing, problem solved. But the homeowner, the current homeowner, who's usually the seller, they're the ones that have to file the claim. And that roof has to be installed while that seller is still living there and while that's still their home. Because once the buyer acquires the home, now insurance won't give them the roof anymore. Do you ever interact with that situation?
We do. So we get that a lot. So this is the example. You call me up. You're like, I got someone buying this home. Can you go check it out? When we go check it out, you're like, I think the roof needs to be replaced. Yes, it does. But it's an insurance claim, right? It's not just.
So we're waiting to see if insurance approves it or not, basically. Okay.
And so you should file a claim. So then you have the seller file the claim and you go through there. Now if everything goes good, that's obviously the best way to go. Sometimes you're on a time crunch. So then
sometimes the seller's like, I don't want to deal with that.
I don't want to deal with that. And sometimes it's because they're uneducated, right? And so that's if you can get your roofer This is if you can get your roofer.
Sometimes they're not living in the home anymore.
They're not living.
They're out of state, and they're like, I don't want to deal with the roof.
And so if you have to educate on the process, most people think they have to be there. You don't. They think you have to live there. You don't. You think it's hard to file a claim. It's not. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. You can do it online or on the phone.
Yeah, people freak out when they hear they need to start dealing with the insurance company. They just have like an ADD moment and they don't know what to do.
Because most of we're fear of the unknown. Your roofer can call with you on 3-way. Like if he's not doing those things to help you, then he shouldn't be your roofer. He can actually get on the phone with you, call your insurance company, walk you through the steps, get your storm date, get all that data for you. You present it. It's a 5 to 10 minute claim. He should be out there to represent you.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so super easy. And that's why most people say no. I don't want to do that. It's not. It's really not a crazy process. It's actually, ironically, when you're selling it, if that's what you have to do, it's going to be the easiest part of the process.
Wow. I mean, that's what I consider like a white glove level of service. That's kind of how our brokerage operates. Mm-hmm. We do little things like that to just take the workload off of our client. And we already know the process. It's so easy for us because it's something we do all the time. Mm-hmm. And so that's really good to know. Yeah,
just imagine you're selling your home right now and you call you, hey, Laura, who's your insurance? What, blah, blah, insurance. Great. We're going to call them real quick on 3-way. We call them on 3-way. Yeah. We file the claim together. It's done.
One more thing just done off their to-do list right then.
And then, hey, well, what about when the adjuster comes out? Well, we're going to be there for you. Well, I'm not going to be home. That's okay.
So you'll show up when the adjuster gets there and help along that situation.
Make sure, make it as streamlined as possible. Just kind of be in your corner.
That's amazing. I mean, I know my clients. I've got clients that are very busy. A lot of times they have me handling stuff for them that most realtors don't do. Yep. And to know that I can call a roofer out that's going to help not just my client, but it's going to help me, that's invaluable. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Especially when you're juggling a lot of different
There's so much going on. It's the last thing. You don't want to be there. And we get it for all, well, I have to be there to meet my roofer. And I don't know if it's a sales pitch or what. And I get it. You want to build rapport with your realtor. And if you have that client, what's crazy is there's a couple realtors I've never met that we do all their roofs, and I've never met them. And the reason is that I would love to meet them, but I understand their time is valuable and they're doing other things.
Yeah, there's only so many hours in the day.
You don't need to be there, right? And now it's great if you can be there. They'll come when they can, but they're, hey, can I be there? And they're like, well, my other roofer wanted me to be there. They said I needed to be there.
And how long, like for you, so whenever we get a house under contract, I mean, especially now, the market's crazy right now. So we're having like record low, very short option period. Yeah. Because, buyers are having to make the offer super attractive to the seller. Yeah. But typically, it's usually between 7 and 10 days that we have to get inspections done. Yep. And so my buyer they'll need somebody to come out like super quick. Like sometimes it's the very next day that we need, that's all the time we have. And we need somebody out there within the next 24 to 48 hours to put eyes on the roof.
We're, depending on weather, of course, right? We're within 24 hours. Most of the time we can get out there same day. So when you're like, well, I need you there, I need you there in 2 days. I'll be there today. I'll be there tomorrow. We want to get out there as soon as possible to get it done, to get you all your stuff and get you any info we can.
So what does someone do? So let's say I've got either myself or a homeowner or a buyer, and they're like, we want to get our roof looked at. We're thinking about getting a new roof and we want to know our options. Yep. What do? They call you, they call your office.
Yeah. So you can call us. You can call me directly, right? I'm available even as the owner. You can call our office. You can go, shoot us an email from website or social media, reach out to us, and we will literally be there within 24 hours.
That's amazing.
And just to get it taken care of.
So for a buyer that wants some type of report, do you charge for this?
We do not. So everything's complimentary.
So this is a free, that's amazing.
Yeah. So we'll do photo documentations in the PDF. So it shows like the address of the home, the photo of the home, ground photos. So we're taking photos of the front of the house, the screens, gutters, all around it, and then we're getting on the roof, taking photos of the shingles, the chimney, the flashing, everything around there. And then you're
giving specifics about what repairs it needs, if any, or anything along that line.
Or what we found and kind of why this is what, right? Like if you go into a house, let's just say you got hail damage to the screens, the windows, the gutters, the fence, the roof, you're showing here's why, and all this should be covered in your insurance claim. If you want to do a cash bid and you want to just get it done, you maybe just fix the roof. If there's a damage there, maybe there's not. We've seen instances where there's, the roof just has minor stuff. It's not worth the replacement. Yes, does it have damage, but is it going to leak or is it compromised now? No, you're good. So we just try to be honest with that. If your roofer is saying every roof you do needs to be replaced, there's probably a problem. Right. I would actually say a majority of the ones we go to for realtors are good. And we like to keep that because we just want to get honest opinion because it's always going to come back.
Yeah, a situation that I'm in often is a homeowner goes to put their house on the market and they're reaching like that 15 year cusp, right where the roof, it could be replaced. It's not,
Yep.
It doesn't have much life left, or the buyer thinks it doesn't have much life left. And we'll call a roofer out to inspect it. And every now and then the roofer says, man, it's got plenty of life left.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
It just doesn't have a lot of damage on it. I would say it's not compromised, right? If it has a lot of life left, that probably means that although it shows signs of wear and tear, none of it has compromised the integrity of the roofing system,
Okay.
right? Like for instance, if the lifted shingles we talked about, water can get underneath.
Right.
Missing shingles, water can get in and get inside the home.
So if it was a roof that was installed well to begin with,
And no storm.
that's a phrase I hear all the time. It's got a lot of life left. I get
Yeah.
this phrase all the time.
Yeah,
And
and then
I'm like, does that mean
what does that
2
mean?
years? Does it mean 15? You know, what is
Are they showing you documentation to back that up? Are they showing you document? And then here's the flip side.
So they need to be like, it's got a lot of life left, and this is why, and
Yes.
show why.
Here's what we found, right? Here's the data that we found, and here's why we think it has a lot of life left. Here's what we think, and here's what we found. And so,
Okay.
and then I think it ultimately, unfortunately, with the roofers, why you should get somebody you trust is, I've been called in kind of the third man, and the seller's roofer says the roof's fine, and the buyer's roofer says the roof's trash.
Yeah, I see this all the time.
And it sucks because then you're putting people in the middle, and then you have to go in and
Yeah.
be the moderator. Like, hey Dustin, what do you think? And I'm going to tell people this roof has damage, but I try to put it myself. I have a wife, 2 kids. If I'm buying this home, would the roof
What
last
would you want for yourself?
5-10 years,
Yeah.
right? If it's good, if there's just wear and tear or whatever, but if it's not a bad roof and I can get the home,
Right.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
buy it.
So whenever I'm working with a seller who's going to put their house on the market, I always have them get a pre-inspection so we can be proactive about any repairs, and I have them get the roof checked out. So, I've got my roofing guy. All right, awesome. I follow up with them. Yeah, I had the roofer come by. He said roof looks great. We go under contract. The buyers have their roofer come out, and now the roof is just, needs all these repairs, or they say they need a new roof. And so is this just the difference in opinion of 2 different roofers? I mean, what would be the reason for that?
Yeah, so I use it as that when you hire a professional, okay? So let's just use something that probably all relate to. If I go in for surgery and my doctor says, I recommend you doing this knee surgeon. I don't go, well, I know a guy, like, oh, my buddy from high school, I'm going to use him or whatever, just because. You would recommend the professional that you hired. So with realtors, and if you're a homeowner, you should trust your realtor if you trust them to sell your home, right? If you're trusting them to buy or sell your home, you should trust who they use, because unfortunately, if you go to a buddy, and let's just say there's a deal. My buddy goes, hey, I got a house that's 15 years old, kind of what you talked about. My roof looks like crap. I'm seeing all these stains. I get up there and I go, hey, man, do you want to replace it? There's some damage. It's not bad. Insurance wouldn't replace it. I don't think it's going to.
They're like, we're about to move. We don't want to pay for a roof.
Well, yeah, and what if he says, no, I'm not moving? Well, hey, man, why don't you wait till it's storm or something, because this roof's just not going to leak. It's not an integrity issue. It just looks like crap, and he doesn't want to spend the $15,000. Well, if he tells me that he's selling that house, it's a different conversation. Is that, hey, man, this roof's older. You've had it for 15 years. It's call it a 30-year roof. You're halfway through.
It's probably going to become an issue.
It's going to become an issue, and you're going to want to replace it, so you be proactive. So I think what's got to happen is, as a realtor, as a homeowner, you need to trust your realtor.
Yeah.
You need to use their guy, not yours.
Well,
because
it's also
your guy will tell you-
interesting what you said about the roof can look like crap, but it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all the time.
Absolutely.
So it's just a cosmetic thing.
Sometimes it's like if you pass the Lamborghini, broke down the side of the road, it looks incredible on the outside, but you just blew the motor, or you see the beat up car that's just crap on the outside, but it's running.
Yeah.
At that, depending on where you're going, you probably want the car that looks like crap and running
the
nice,
one
right?
that's running. Yeah.
Exactly. In shot. So it's the same thing, and it just depends on what. If I'm your friend, maybe I don't want to tell you your roof's shot and charge you money. I'm trying to keep your business, so I'm gonna tell you your roof's good, because most people, unfortunately, will tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear.
Very true. I see that a lot in this business.
So as a realtor, you should go with who you trust, and your homeowner should go with, if they're trusting you to do that, they should go with who you recommend.
Right.